tried to define a solution using an old method. That is why, for them, they are saying probably like today's in most of the Twitter discussions, the government crusaders was asking the Deputy President Gachagua to stop sabotaging President Ruto's government, which is way fetched. Remember, they called the head of opposition, led by Raila Amolo Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, to try and put up a dialogue which the majority of the people has rejected. So it also needs to point out that the ruling class, which is basically people who are not interested to work in this country, but they want to consolidate power and then use it to appropriate the wealth of the Kenyan people, mainly backed by certain foreign interests, whether they find themselves in the opposition or in the government, then they are indeed the enemies of the people. So the next pressure point must target the primary enemy, which in our correct analysis are now represented by William Samoei Ruto. So when we talk about William Samoei Ruto must go, because that is the political program, that the President William Samoei Ruto must vacate office with the entire Kenya Kwanza government. And in the same scale, we must not tolerate that the corrupt opposition leaders that form the same class can hijack the power and maintain the status quo. This is important because even though we put more pressure for the fall of the Kenya Kwanza government, we must also take the debate seriously of what will happen finally when power falls in the street. Because when the power falls in the street, you remember today's Ndi is scaring us that we will go the Sudan way, that we will go through the Libya way. But we must tell them that Kenya has, men and women of merit that can, oversee the affairs for the benefit of the majority of this country. So we must stay focused to call upon each and every Kenyan that President William Samoei Ruto did not reject the Finance Bill 2024, but he was forced to reject the Finance Bill. He was forced to dissolve the cabinet. He was forced, and this took him too long after so much blood has been shed in the streets. So to give meaning to these people, we must continue to call out President William Samoei Ruto, not just to resign, but even after his resignation, he must be rounded up. His ill-gotten wealth must be confiscated, and he must face the law and be tried for the crimes that have been committed and be jailed. In this way, we will be setting a good example that anybody who takes the office of this magnitude, like the president, must know that all the power rests in the hands of the majority of the Kenyan people, and only his duty is to serve the Kenyan majority. It is also important during this discussion to discuss the context of the popular wisdom in the street and who is leading that popular wisdom in the street. Because the street wisdom is actually that the Gen Z movement is leaderless, it is partyless, and it is tribeless. It's also important to recognize that this street wisdom comes from a historical and the context that they find themselves in. In fact, the young people are happier calling themselves tribeless because tribes have been used as a tool to divide them. President William Samoei Ruto and the political elite in this country cannot stop this movement because they cannot exploit petty nationalism, petty nationalism to actually defeat the demands of the majority of the Kenyan people. Finally, the street wisdom that says that we are partyless. This has also been to understood that the political parties that have taken political power, be it in the opposition or in government, has auctioned the Kenyan people. So in that regard, the majority of the Kenyan people in the streets are saying that they do not want a political party that can auction them to a criminal that has called them treasonous. So in that sense, the movement is indeed demanding for a political party that only represents the interest of the majority of the Kenyan people, but not that which can negotiate for political power with a non-criminal that has overseen so much death. And it actually follows in that end that even the leadership that the people are demanding is the leaders that will emerge from the streets, not the normal leaders that are actually not bothered by the interest of the majority, that will want to only use, seize the moment to negotiate for political power at the expense of the majority of the Kenyan people. So I think the next pressure point is to ensure that the whole Kenya Kwanza administration vacates office with immediate effect. There's a clear audit of how many people have died. Remember, they denied the Ongata Rongai massacre. They denied the Githurai massacre. Today, their bodies being retrieved from Mukuru. And nobody is telling us if these are the same. Some of them were even found with flags. So it basically means that we do not have a government in place. We actually have organized criminals, gangs that are running the state's affairs that can only continue to kill the majority of the Kenyan people. So our call from our perspective that we need to widen the consultations within several stratas that were in the streets. Have a genuine consultation in readiness to expand our organization. Because remember, President William Samoei Ruto is not in power because the majority of the people wants him. He's not in power because he's popular now, but he's in power because he has the instruments of violence at his disposal. So he has deployed the military, he has the police as its service, and even today as we talk, we lost one comrade at Mukuru today, was shot dead by the same President Ruto's weapons of violence. So we cannot underrate the power and the miracle in organization to defeat an organized violence of somebody that is already cornered and is fighting for his life. So, three important things is that we must deflate the government propaganda, propel the pro-people propaganda, and finally make sure that we are preparing for post-Ruto era through extensive consultation involving as many people that were engaged in the streets and forming a formidable organization to drive a pro-people agenda to its final conclusion. Thank you.